Hello viewers, you are welcome back to our channel. Today we are going to take you through questions you should expect when you are going for your F1 visa interview. These are very important questions that will help you prepare for your visa interview. And when you are able to understand these questions and know how to answer them, that will be easy for you during your preparation and during your interview. Today we are just giving you the questions you should expect. Now, in the next video, we are going to give answers, possible answers, or how the consulars want you to answer them, or how people answered these questions and how we answered these questions to get our visas approved. This is just like mock interview. So make sure that you watch till the end to get everything that will help you. Subscribe if you are new here, and let us know your thoughts in the comment section. We also have a Telegram page that supports people like you, answer your questions, and offer mock interviews coaching for people like you. Please check the video description section and join the Telegram page. Send us an email on beitlamad@gmail.com. The email is in the link description also. So please, let's get right into the video. Paul, you are welcome. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm well. It's exciting to be here, you know?
Yes, I'm happy. And you are looking good. Your haircut is smart. You did it yourself?
Fantastic. I try.
Wow. Now, today we want to talk about questions that students should expect when they are going for their F1 visa interview. Can you tell us, can you take us through the process and what should I expect if I'm going for my visa interview today, tomorrow, next week, or whatever?
I always like to think in boxes and in categories and in broad headings. So probably will be helpful for us to sort of also categorize the questions into broad heading. I would say probably the first would be to expect questions about your study plans, and I'll go into the details of the questions. The second category would be questions about your sponsorship and funding, everything about money. That would be the second box. The third thing would be about your personal plans, and I'll go into that and explain some of the questions that you should expect. And then the fourth thing would be, something related to your family in general, your family home and your family abroad possibly. And then, a last category, as you would expect, about anything general, like miscellaneous questions. Okay, so let's go up and review some of the questions that you might expect under your study plans category.
So you are categorizing this into four,
into four main ones with a small sub box that I will call like others.
Okay, all right. So take us through the first one about study plan.
Right. So the one about study plans, and I'm reading from my notes here because I want this to be very informative and direct and clear to everybody. So the thing about a study plan would include questions like, what are you going to study? Right? Because they need to know that. So what are you going to study? Public health, history, religion, whatever. Where is your school located? Because they want to know that you have some good understanding of where the school is. Questions like, can you not study this program in your home country? Why do you need to go into that institution? That's one of the big questions that comes. Right? And you usually say, why that institution? Why so-and-so institution?
Why this school?
Why this school? Right? Why this school? That's another question.
It's a very big question.
It's a big question.
And it's one of the most important
questions.
You must have a good reason
for why this is this specific institution. And the best way to sort of think about this, why this institution, is to think about that. Okay, you have so many options. You have several thousands of schools that could fit. But why is this school exactly the place that you want to study? And I think processing it that way helps you think through some of those things.
I think you will help us answer them in the next
video. I'm going to give some suggestions as well. A few questions around this. Do you know anybody in this institution that you're trying to go to? Right? Do you know professors? Do you know graduate students? They're trying to sort of establish what sort of connections that you have, or whether you genuinely apply to this place in the first place.
And where did you hear about this school?
The school from?
They ask you why you are going to study the course. What is the difference between why this school and why this program?
So they can overlap, but they are certainly different things. There may be certain things about the school that is attracting you to go to the place,
Yeah.
that is not necessarily the same thing as the same things that attracts you about the program.
Yeah.
Right? So they would certainly overlap, because sometimes the things that are attracting you about the school is actually the program structure, so, or the program itself. Right?
Yeah.
So that also sort of overlaps. But there are two different questions. And again, that's probably one of the good questions to expect, right?
Yeah.
Why this program?
Yeah.
Or
Why this school? These questions are
topmost.
Yeah, like you would definitely
you would definitely encounter these
Yeah.
questions one way or the other.
Okay.
Yeah, so the other set of questions would be how many schools did you apply to, which is the classic question that many people sometimes get worried about, especially those who apply to only one school or those who apply to too many schools. And then the other standard question will be why the US?
Yeah.
Why are you trying to go to the US?
Okay.
So these are some of the like common questions in this first big
Broad
category.
area. Okay. Can you take us through the next one?
Yes.
And the next one is it sponsorship?
It's about sponsorship.
Okay, that's very big.
Yes,
very big.
That's a very important part
Yeah.
of the application process. The very first one usually is who is sponsoring your education, right? Who is your sponsor? Or if you sometimes they will read the I-20, and so they know that maybe you have some sponsorship from somebody coming up, but they'll ask you who's paying for the deficit.
Okay, yes.
That's another way that they usually would put it. Who's paying for the deficit? Sometimes they ask you, did you get scholarships? Or did you get a scholarship?
And how are you going to pay for your studies?
Another question will be that, yes, another way to reframe that is how are you going to pay for your studies? Sometimes they would ask, did you get a loan?
Okay.
And the natural follow-up question with that is, how are you going to repay the loan? Those are some of the things that you should ask. A few times they will go a little further than just what and how. They'll ask why. So why is this person sponsoring you? And I think that's like one of the things that you experienced in your interview as well a few years ago. They will not just say, who is sponsoring you, but they'll ask you, why is this person sponsoring you? And that's slightly technical.
Yes.
It takes a little bit of thinking and creativity to be able to make that one happen. But we will talk about that in the next video, so make sure you watch that next video. And then sometimes they would ask, depending on who is sponsoring you and what your I-20 says about that, they'll ask a bit more questions about that. That's if an institution is sponsoring you, they'll ask about the institution, like, why is this institution sponsoring you?
And how did you get a scholarship?
How did you get the scholarship? Why were you giving that sponsorship?
Yes.
And probing a little further into that. So those are some of the general common questions under the sponsorship.
All right. So tell us, do they also ask questions about your sponsor, like who your sponsor is, his or her monthly income or annual income, and the kind of job your sponsor does?
Yes, we have countless stories of people being asked that question. Yes, so expect question about who this particular sponsor is, what does the sponsor do. Sometimes they'll even go to some details of how much does the sponsor make at the end of the year, or in terms of documentation, they would ask you to show some document. Maybe show me the tax returns of this person, show me the employment bank statement of this person. So all of that are questions that you should expect under the sponsorship category.
Okay. Now let's go to the next, which is
the next one will be personal plans.
Yeah.
Right, and the personal plans would include things like post-graduation plans.
Okay.
So what are your plans after this program, right? Another way of asking that is, will you continue to work for your current employer after your education?
Yeah.
Depending on the kind of story that you're putting up, right? Sometimes they will ask, what are your career goals back home after your studies, or are you planning to go somewhere else? Another tricky question that might come up is, do you plan to stay in the US after your education?
Yeah.
That's a very tricky, it's a very plain question. That's a very tricky question that might come up. So it's very straightforward. These ones, they're not long, complicated questions at all. It's essentially, what are your plans after school? And
also sometimes they ask you, how would this program
benefit you.
Right. How would this program benefit you?
It's the same. You see the way they're all very similar questions, but it's framed differently.
Yeah.
So how would this program benefit you? It's essentially, what is your plan? How are you planning to use the degree?
Program, yeah.
Are you planning to use the degree afterwards?
And always it must be linked back to.
It must be linked back home. Your plan has to be linked back home at some point. Okay. And we'll talk about that in the next video. But that's what it is.
Okay, so now After personal plans or your plans after school, what other questions should I expect?
That's the family category. So anything about your family. Do you have brothers and sisters? Where are your parents, right? Do you have relatives in the US? And that's one of the big questions that shows up very often. Are you married? Right? They will try to ask about your spouse or your children. If you have a family of your own, they try to establish, where your connections most lie. What is your brother or sister doing in the US?
Yeah.
Right? If you showed a bank statement from your siblings and your relatives, that's what they want to know. What is your brother or your sister doing in the US?
And I think basically this, sometimes we cannot know the question they are going to ask on this area.
No, you can't.
Because they can ask you, how long has he been in the US?
How long has he been in the US?
What work does he do?
Yes.
How did he go to the US?
How did he get to the
so
US? Yeah.
it may come from so many angles. So you must just expect general questions about
your family,
about yourself, about your who you are, what you studied in school. Your GPA even can come here, and what you are doing, the kind of work you are doing. And I think when we start addressing and answering the questions, I think it will come up, because sometimes these things connect. Right? They are not in isolation.
They are not.
When they ask you a question about what are your plans after school, you can use your family information to answer. When they ask you a question about your finances, obviously you can use your family. And when they ask you employment information and so forth. And all that. So just watch out for the responses and how we are going to answer this in the next video.
The last category, though, is the general miscellaneous question, and you sort of alluded to a lot of it in your very last submission. But things like GRE, TOEFL, sometimes they would even go ahead and ask, like, did you apply to the fall semester or the summer semester, and why did you apply to like each of these semesters, for nothing? Sometimes they will ask you, why do you think I should give you this visa? Why do you think that you qualify for this visa? Or any other question that does not necessarily fall within these other four categories that we've already talked about. And so it's always good to think in categories and think about and prepare accordingly, like prepare in these four different boxes.
And for people who have already been to the interview before, sometimes they ask you what
has changed,
or somebody who have already had a visa, they will ask you, what did you do when you went to the US? It's based on who you are as a person, and also what you put on your DS-160.